It happened in less than 5 seconds, too fast for most to notice, too quiet for anyone to understand. But Alexa Pierce heard it. The night had been chaotic even before the whisper. It was a Saturday at Langford's Prime, an upscale steakhouse in downtown Los Angeles where the tables gleamed and the service staff walked like ghosts, present, silent, invisible. Alexa, a 31-year-old waitress working the late shift, had seen every kind of customer come through those doors: politicians, movie stars, athletes, and the occasional stranger who seemed to carry danger like a scent. Tonight was one of those nights. At table 9 sat 3 men who didn't belong to the usual crowd. They weren't loud, but their stillness drew more attention than noise ever could. The man at the center was older, probably in his late 40s, with slicked back black hair and a gray suit so perfectly pressed it looked folded by lasers. That was June Park. Few knew his name in public, but those who did spoke it carefully. The second man, David Hahn, barely spoke at all. He sat with a straight spine, eyes always scanning. The third, younger, restless, kept his hand under the table like he was guarding something. Alexa didn't know any of that yet. To her, they were just another group of VIPs with expensive watches and tighter expressions than their ties. She carried her tray, stepped toward them with the same grace she'd practiced for 8 years, and smiled. "Good evening, gentlemen. May I start you off with our signature?" She stopped, because that's when she heard it. A whisper, small, sharp, like air cutting through metal, in a voice not meant for her. Under the glass, it came from the young man. His lips barely moved, his tone low enough that even June Park didn't react. But Alexa was close enough to catch the sound the syllables carved in her mind instantly. She blinked once, forcing herself not to show anything. "Our house," read Pears beautifully, with her voice trailed off as her eyes shifted to the table. There between the plates and napkins sat a single glass of water untouched. Light from the chandelier above caught something strange beneath it, a flicker. A reflection that didn't belong, a small, black object no larger than a coin. Her heartbeat began to climb. Alexa didn't know what it was, but she'd seen enough crime documentaries and late-night news to know that when you find a device under a glass in front of a man like that, it isn't good. She straightened, careful not to draw attention. Behind her, Cliff Morton, the restaurant manager, was watching. He always did. He liked catching servers in small mistakes, the kind of man who smiled for the guests but sneered at the staff once they turned away. Alexa finished her sentence, collected their appetizer orders, and walked calmly toward the kitchen. But the calm on her face was a mask. Inside, her instincts screamed. When she reached the kitchen door, she exhaled, eyes darting toward her co-worker, Tasha Reed, who was polishing glasses near the bar. "Don't look over," Alexa whispered. "Just listen." Tasha froze, sensing the tone. Alexa leaned closer. "Table 9, 3 men. I think something's about to go wrong." Tasha frowned. "You mean like trouble? Alexa nodded slowly. "The kind that ends up on the news." She slipped through the kitchen door before Tasha could ask more, her heart hammering. She peeked back through the circular glass window at the swinging door. The men were still there, still calm, still silent. But something in the air had shifted. The younger one leaned closer to June Park, whispering again. Park's expression didn't move, but David Hahn's eyes darted toward the entrance. Seconds later, the front doors opened. 2 men in dark coats walked in, pretending to be diners. But Alexa noticed immediately they weren't looking for a table. Their eyes swept the room, scanning, calculating. "Cliff," Alexa said quickly, approaching her manager near the bar. "Those guys who just walked in, do they have a reservation?" Cliff didn't even glance up from his tablet. "Probably VIP walk-ins. You know the rules, no questions, just service." "Cliff, listen to me, something's not right." He cut her off sharply. "Alexa, you're not paid to judge guests. You're paid to carry plates. Now get back to work." Her stomach tightened. She turned away, pretending to grab menus, but her eyes stayed locked on the front. The 2 men were moving toward table 9, slow, coordinated. One reached into his coat pocket. Alexa's mind raced. She remembered the whisper. "Under the glass." She looked again. June Park's hand was now resting near it. He hadn't moved much, but his fingers tapped the table twice like a code. The younger man glanced at him nervously. Then Alexa heard it, the smallest sound in the world, a click. Her breath froze. Without thinking, she moved. She dropped the menus, spun toward the kitchen, and shouted, "Down!" The blast came a second later. The entire restaurant shook, glass shattered, tables flipped, and screams erupted. The explosion wasn't massive, but it was close-tight, controlled like someone had triggered something beneath a table. Smoke filled the air, alarms blared, and guests crawled for cover. Alexa's ears rang. Her shoulder hit the floor hard, but she was already scanning where was table 9. Through the haze, she saw June Park on the ground, bleeding from his arm. David Hahn was dragging him behind an overturned table, while the younger man lay motionless beside them. Alexa didn't think. She pushed through overturned chairs and shattered glass, grabbing the fallen water pitcher to douse a small flame near the tablecloth. The air stung with smoke and panic. "Stay back," David Hahn shouted at her, his voice sharp. "I'm not leaving him," Alexa yelled back, coughing. "He's losing blood." She tore a strip from her apron and pressed it to Park's wound. He winced, but his gaze fixed on her, steady, assessing. In the chaos, their eyes locked. Something passed between them, trust or shock, maybe both. Sirens wailed outside. The fire alarm shrieked overhead. Guests stumbled toward the exits while sprinklers began to rain from the ceiling. Alexa held the cloth tighter. "You need to stay awake, sir." June Park's voice came low, barely a whisper. "You heard it, didn't you?" Alexa hesitated. "The whisper?" He nodded once, his eyes narrowing like he was measuring her soul. "That's how you knew." Before she could answer, Cliff Morton appeared, face pale and furious. "Alexa, what the hell did you do?" She spun toward him, disbelief flooding her voice. "What I did? The restaurant just exploded." Cliff pointed toward her, shouting for everyone to hear. "You were at that table. You must have dropped something." "You must enough." It wasn't Alexa who said it, it was June Park. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the chaos like a blade. Cliff froze mid-sentence, realizing for the first time who he was yelling at. Park's breathing was labored, but his authority remained intact. "She saved my life," he said. Everyone else missed it. Paramedics rushed in moments later, but the damage had already been done, physical and otherwise. The explosion hadn't just blown through the restaurant. It had ripped open something deeper, an invisible divide between truth and perception. As Park was carried out on a stretcher, he looked at Alexa once more. "Find me," he whispered. "Tomorrow." Then he was gone. Alexa stood in the wreckage, soaked, shaking, surrounded by smoke and suspicion. She had no idea what she'd just stepped into, but deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Because that whisper, it wasn't random. It was a warning, and someone wanted her dead for hearing it. By morning, downtown Los Angeles looked calm again. But inside Langford's Prime, the air still carried the scent of smoke and melted linen. Yellow tape crisscrossed the entrance, police scanners buzzed, and detectives moved between the shattered tables with slow, practiced steps. Alexa Pierce stood just outside the glass doors, shivering not from cold but from the weight of the night. She hadn't gone home. The blast had blown out half the windows and left her with a bruise on her shoulder and a dozen unanswered questions. "Ms. Pierce?" a voice called. She turned. A man in a charcoal suit flashed his badge, Detective Evan Price, LAPD Major Crimes. His voice was calm, but his eyes were the kind that missed nothing. "You were the one who yelled for everyone to get down?" Alexa nodded. "You heard something first." Her throat was dry. "A whisper," she said quietly. "Someone said under the glass. I thought it was strange. I didn't think I just moved." Price studied her for a long moment, then scribbled something in his notebook. "And you'd never met the man at that table before?" She shook her head. "No, sir. I was just serving." Price's brows lifted slightly. "That man is June Park. Ever heard of him?" Alexa hesitated. "They said he owns some shipping company?" The detective gave a small, humorless smile. "That's one version of the story." He flipped the page. "We've got evidence this wasn't random. Whoever planted that device knew exactly where he'd be sitting." Alexa's stomach twisted. "So it was targeted?" "Looks that way." He closed his notebook. "Mr. Park's people have requested you be kept out of media contact for 48 hours. For your safety." "My safety," she repeated. "Why me?" Price slid his hands into his pockets. "Because whoever wanted him gone might think you ruined their plan." Alexa's breath caught. "You think they'll come after me?" "I think you should keep your phone on and your doors locked," Price said evenly. "And if anyone tries to reach you about what happened, call me first." She nodded, numb, and watched as he walked back inside. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. "Unknown number." She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A smooth, quiet voice replied. "You saved my life last night." Alexa froze. "Mr. Park?" Yes, he said simply. Meet me, noon Pacific Court Hotel, room 1403. Wait, He hung up. Alexa stared at her phone, heart racing. Every instinct screamed, don't go. But another voice inside her, smaller, steadier, said she needed to. Something about the way he'd spoken at the restaurant. The authority in his whisper. It wasn't ordinary gratitude. She spent the rest of the morning pacing her small apartment, replaying everything. The whisper. The explosion. Cliff shouting at her, and June Park bleeding calm, calling her the only one who heard. By noon, she was standing in front of the Pacific Court Hotel, a downtown tower wrapped in glass and silence. She told herself she was just here to make sure he was okay. That was all. But when the elevator doors opened on the 14th floor, her heart pounded harder. Room 1403's door opened before she even knocked. David Hahn stood there, expression unreadable. He wore a crisp gray suit, no trace of injury. Ms. Pierce, come in. Alexa stepped inside. The suite smelled of antiseptic and polished leather. June Park sat near the window, his arm bandaged, a cup of tea steaming beside him. He didn't look like a man who'd nearly died 12 hours ago. He looked like a man who'd already decided what came next. Sit, he said quietly. Alexa sat. You're not easy to find, he said. I had to call a friend at the police department to get your number. You mean Detective Price? His eyes flickered with amusement. Ah, so he spoke to you. Good, he's thorough. Alexa leaned forward. Why did you want to see me? Because you did something rare, Park said. You listened. Most people hear noise. You heard intent, she frowned. I don't understand. Who were those men? He took a slow sip of tea before answering. Former associates. They thought last night would be my final dinner. The words hung in the air like smoke. Alexa felt the chill crawl up her spine. Associates? You mean, I used to run a certain kind of business, Park said evenly. Imports, exports, money moving between cities. Some of it legal, some of it not. But I left that life behind. Alexa didn't breathe. And they didn't like that? He gave a small nod. Leaving isn't something men like them forgive. She stared at him. So last night was a hit? He didn't answer directly. I had reason to believe they might try something. That's why I brought the younger man Min to sit opposite me. He was supposed to be watching. But the whisper came from him instead. Alexa's eyes widened. He warned you. Park's voice softened. He was one of mine once. I think he realized too late what they'd asked him to do. Was he dead? Park said quietly. Before the blast even hit. Alexa sat back, her throat tight. So why tell me all this? I'm just a waitress. No, he said. You're a witness. And maybe an opportunity. Opportunity? He stood slow but steady and walked toward the window. The skyline glowed behind him, Los Angeles glinting in late sunlight. I owe you my life. I repay my debts. I didn't do it for he raised a hand. I know, that's why I'm offering. She frowned. Offering what? He turned toward her, his gaze sharp now. Protection. Work. A way out of whatever corner of life forced you into that restaurant. Her pulse jumped. You don't even know me. I know enough, Park said. You stayed calm in the fire. You didn't freeze. That's more than I can say for half the men I used to command. She stared at him, unsure if this was praise or recruitment. I'm not interested in anything illegal, Mr. Park. He smiled faintly. Neither am I, not anymore. But there's something else I need. Someone I can trust to deliver information without question. Someone no one would suspect. Alexa blinked. You want me to spy for you? Not spy, he said. Listen. Like you did last night. There's a man named Gregory Langford, the owner of your restaurant. He's not just in hospitality. He launders money for the same people who wanted me dead. Alexa's stomach dropped. Gregory? No, that can't be. Why do you think they picked that restaurant? Park asked. He owed them a favor. He let them in. Alexa remembered Cliff's words. You're not paid to judge guests. The way he'd dismissed her fear like it was noise. Her skin prickled. Park studied her reaction carefully. Now you see why I needed to talk to you. I don't know what you expect me to do. Keep working, he said. Pay attention. Someone in that building knows more. When you find out who, call this number. He slid a small card across the table, black, unmarked except for a single phone number. Alexa stared at it. You're asking me to go back there after what happened? I'm asking you to stay alive, Park said quietly. Because if Langford's involved, they'll come looking for the woman who heard the whisper. Alexa's chest tightened. You think they already know it was me? Park's eyes hardened. They will soon. Silence filled the room, heavy and sharp. Alexa rose slowly, pocketing the card. If I do this and it gets me killed, it won't, Park said. Because they'll have to go through me first. She met his gaze, uncertain whether to feel reassured or terrified. Why me? She asked finally. His answer came like a shadow. Because sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the only one who can see the truth. When Alexa stepped back into the hallway, the elevator doors slid open with a quiet chime. But behind her, she swore she heard something soft. Deliberate, a whisper from the suite before the door closed. It wasn't Park. It was David Hahn, his voice low and cold. She's in danger already. Alexa Pierce didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw fire and glass raining from the ceiling. Every time she blinked, she heard that whisper under the glass like it was carved into her nerves. By morning, she'd stopped pretending she could rest. The city looked the same from her apartment window, same hum of traffic, same gray sky, but nothing about her life felt normal anymore. Her phone lay silent on the counter, the black card from June Park beside it. She hadn't called the number. Not yet. Instead, she put on her uniform. A starched white shirt, black slacks, sensible shoes. The clothes that made her invisible. By 8 a.m., she was back at Langford's Prime. The police tape was gone. The restaurant had been scrubbed spotless overnight, too spotless, like they wanted the world to forget an explosion had even happened there. When she stepped inside, she stopped cold. Cliff Morton, her manager, stood at the bar, barking orders at two nervous employees. His suit was rumpled, his face pale, but he still looked at Alexa with the same disdain he always did. Well, if it isn't the hero waitress, he said, his voice dripping sarcasm. You're late, Alexa stared at him. You're open already? After what happened? Cliff shrugged. Management wants business as usual. Mr. Langford insists we move forward. Mr. Langford's here? Cliff smirked. In his office, deciding how much damage control we need. Don't bother him unless you want to lose your job. Alexa swallowed her anger. She needed to stay. Not for the paycheck, but because June Park had been right. Something about this place was wrong. She headed for the back hallway that led to the break room. As she passed the kitchen, she caught sight of Hannah Cole, the hostess, whispering with a man she didn't recognize, tall, in a gray suit that didn't match his shoes. They stopped talking the second Alexa appeared. Morning, Alexa said cautiously. Hannah forced a smile. Hey, rough night, huh? The man turned slightly. His eyes were cold, expression unreadable. Then he nodded to Hannah and walked off toward the service corridor. Alexa frowned. New staff? Hannah hesitated. No, he's with corporate security. Corporate? I thought the police were still investigating. Hannah's smile tightened. Mr. Langford said it's an internal matter now. Internal. That word lodged in Alexa's gut like a splinter. She spent the morning refilling coffee cups and pretending not to notice the two men in suits who lingered near the bar. They weren't eating, barely talking, just watching. Every time she turned her back, she could feel their eyes on her. At noon, she slipped into the alley behind the restaurant to catch her breath. Her hands shook as she lit a cigarette, a habit she'd quit years ago, but fear had a way of resurrecting old vices. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered instantly. Hello? It's Park. Her heart jumped. How did you? I told you. You're being watched. His tone was calm, but beneath it was steel. They know you were the one who warned me. Langford's people have orders to find out how. Alexa's stomach dropped. You mean Cliff, Hannah? Start with Cliff, Park said. He's been on Langford's payroll for 8 years. But he's also been taking quiet payments from someone else. Find his side ledger. What ledger? In his office, Park said. Bottom drawer. False back panel. Get it and get out, Alexa's voice shook. You want me to break into my manager's office? Not want, Park said. Need. Because if you don't, they'll make sure you disappear before sunset. The line went dead. Alexa stood there, the phone pressed to her ear, the world spinning around her. She wanted to believe he was exaggerating, but when she turned toward the restaurant's back door, she caught sight of something that froze her mid-step. A black SUV was parked across the street. Engine running. 2 men inside, One of them raised a camera. She ducked instinctively and slipped back inside. The rest of the shift dragged like a nightmare. Cliff barked orders. Hannah avoided her gaze, and Alexa could feel the tension thickening with every passing hour. By mid-afternoon, the restaurant was quiet again, the lunch rush gone. That's when she made her move. Cliff's office was a small glass-walled room behind the kitchen, visible from the hallway but easy to access when the cooks were on break. Alexa waited until she heard the kitchen radio switch to commercials and Cliff's voice echo from the front lobby. Then she slipped inside. The office smelled like cologne and cheap coffee. Papers were stacked high, but everything looked too clean, too organized. The desk drawers were locked. Alexa checked the bottom one wood veneer, heavy handle, and felt for a latch underneath. Her fingers found a groove near the back. She pressed. Click. The false panel slid open. Inside was a small black notebook bound in leather. Alexa flipped it open. Every page was filled with names. Dates and amounts columns of cash transactions written in Cliff's neat, blocky handwriting. But halfway through, one name jumped out at her in bold: J. Park transfer. Her pulse quickened. Below it, another note. Langford confirmed delivery. Watch staff for leaks. Her hands trembled. Leaks. That's what they thought, she was a leak. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. Alexa froze. The doorknob turned. She shoved the notebook into her apron and ducked behind a filing cabinet just as Cliff stepped in, muttering into his phone. No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's too busy playing hero. Langford said keep her close until they clean it up. Alexa's blood went cold. Yeah, Cliff continued. If Park's people come asking, I'll handle it. Don't worry, she won't talk. He tossed his phone onto the desk and opened the same drawer Alexa had just been in. When he saw the panel slightly ajar, he frowned. Then he looked up straight toward where Alexa hid. Who's there? She held her breath, her heart pounding so loud she swore he could hear it. Cliff took one step closer, then his phone buzzed again. He cursed and snatched it up. Yeah, I'm in the office, what? He's here? At the front? He bolted out of the room. Alexa waited 3 seconds, then ran. She didn't stop until she was in the alley again, gasping for air. The notebook pressed against her chest. When she opened it one more time, something slipped from between the pages of photo. It was grainy, black and white, but she recognized the people instantly. June Park. And standing next to him, smiling, handshake firm, was Gregory Langford. Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from an unknown number. Delete nothing, trust no one, then another. He's coming for you next. Alexa looked up and saw movement in the reflection of the window beside her. Someone was watching. A shadow shifted just beyond the light, and before she could even turn, a hand reached out from the darkness and grabbed her arm. The hand yanked Alexa back hard. She hit the wall, heart exploding in her chest until a voice whispered fast in her ear, "Don't scream." It wasn't an attacker. It was Tasha Reed. Alexa's knees nearly gave out. "Tasha, what are you doing? You scared me half to death." Tasha looked around the alley, eyes wide. "Girl, you were 2 seconds away from walking right into them." "Into who?" Tasha nodded toward the end of the alley. A black SUV idled there, same one Alexa had seen earlier. 2 men leaned against it, smoking, pretending to be casual. "They've been out there all morning," Tasha whispered. "Cliff said they're from insurance, but that's not insurance." They asked which waitress was closest to table 9. Alexa's throat went dry. "They're watching me." "Yeah," Tasha said. "And I think Cliff knows." Alexa exhaled, forcing her mind to stay sharp. "I need to show you something." She pulled the black notebook from under her apron. This was in Cliff's office. Tasha flipped through a few pages and froze at the handwriting. "That's his signature. You know what this means?" Alexa nodded grimly. "It means everything June Park said was true." Before Tasha could respond, the back door opened. Both women spun. Cliff stood there, phone in hand, smiling like a man who'd just caught a secret. "Well, well," he said softly. "I wondered where you disappeared to." Alexa's grip tightened around the notebook. "We were just—" He held up a finger. "Save it. Langford wants to see you now." Her heart dropped. "Why?" Cliff's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say he's curious about last night," Tasha whispered. "Don't go," Alexa whispered back. "If I run, I look guilty." She followed Cliff inside. The hallway leading to Gregory Langford's office felt colder than usual, even though the air conditioning was off. Cliff knocked once, opened the door, and motioned for her to enter. Langford's office was sleek, modern, and silent. Glass walls, mahogany desk, and a panoramic view of the city. The man himself sat behind the desk, white hair, silver cufflinks, the kind of calm that comes from knowing too much. "Alexa Pierce," he said, voice smooth as marble. "Please sit." She stayed standing. Langford leaned back, studying her like a puzzle. "I understand you were quite the hero last night. Saved one of our most important guests." "Just did what anyone would do," Alexa said. Langford murmured. "Detective Price tells me you noticed something others didn't, that you heard a whisper." Her chest tightened. "Yes. And what exactly did you hear?" "Under the glass," she said quietly. Langford's eyes flickered. "And you're certain that's what was said?" "Yes." He leaned forward slightly, fingertips together. "Interesting. Because our internal investigation found no evidence of any device. The explosion came from faulty gas piping beneath the floor." "Pure accident." Alexa's pulse spiked. "That's not true." You saw what you wanted to see," Langford interrupted, voice soft but firm. "Trauma makes the mind invent things." She clenched her fists. "Then why did those men show up after the blast?" He smiled faintly. "Security. Ensuring our liability was contained." Alexa's instinct screamed. "And Cliff? What's he doing in all of this?" Langford's tone cooled. "Mr. Morton has been loyal for years. You, on the other hand, are an unknown factor." He stood slowly and walked around the desk. "You've been with us, what, 3 years? No incidents, no complaints. Then suddenly, one night you're in the middle of an explosion that injures a guest and damages my reputation. Convenient, isn't it?" Alexa stepped back. "Are you accusing me of something?" Langford stopped close enough that she could smell the faint cologne, expensive, deliberate. "I'm saying you're involved in something you don't understand, and curiosity can be dangerous in this business." He extended his hand, not a handshake, but a command. "The notebook, Miss Pierce." Her blood ran cold. "What notebook?" Langford smiled without warmth. "The one you removed from Mr. Morton's office at 2:47 p.m. She froze. He knew. Somehow he knew. "I have cameras," Langford said softly. "You're not the only one who watches." Alexa tried to think. Her eyes flicked toward the window. "4th floor. Too high to jump, too late to run." Langford's smile deepened slightly. "You've stumbled into a web, Ms. Pierce. The smart thing to do is hand over what you found, forget last night, and go back to serving tables. And if I don't? Then you'll be helping the police with their next investigation," he said quietly. "Yours." The office fell silent. Alexa reached into her apron pocket slowly, but not for the notebook. She touched her phone instead, her thumb hovering over the number June Park had given her. Langford's eyes narrowed. "You really think that man can protect you?" "He's finished. Last night proved it." "He's alive," Alexa said, "and that scares you." For the first time, Langford's jaw tightened. "Be careful, Miss Pierce. Everyone who tries to help that man ends up regretting it." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He turned away to answer. Alexa didn't wait. She slipped out the door and down the hall, her breath catching with every step. When she reached the staff corridor, she broke into a run. She didn't stop until she was outside again. The alley was empty. The SUV was gone. But someone had left something on the dumpster near the back door, an envelope. Her name written on it in perfect block letters. She hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a single photo taken from a distance. It showed her leaving the restaurant the night before, right after the explosion. On the back was a message in neat handwriting. "You heard the whisper. That makes you next." Alexa's hands shook. She shoved the photo back into the envelope and looked up at the street. Traffic moved as usual. The sun glared off windshields. People walked dogs, carried coffees, lived their lives unaware that hers was unraveling by the hour. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Park, it was a text from Tasha. "You need to see this. They're cleaning Cliff's office. Everything's gone." Alexa typed back fast. "Meet me at my place, now." She started walking toward the bus stop, but halfway there, a sleek black sedan pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down. Inside sat Detective Evan Price. "Get in," he said. Alexa hesitated. "Why?" "Because I just came from the station," Price said. "And someone tried to delete your witness statement." She froze. "Delete it?" "From the system," he said grimly. "Langford's lawyers said it was a duplicate entry." It wasn't. He looked straight at her. Whatever you got yourself into, Miss Pierce, it's bigger than you think. And now someone's trying to erase you from the record. Alexa stared at him, realization dawning like a chill in her bones. Then we can't go to the station, she said quietly. They'll be waiting. Price nodded. Good. You're starting to think like someone who wants to live. As the car merged into traffic, Alexa looked out the window back at the restaurant shrinking in the distance, gleaming and perfect again, as if nothing had ever happened, but she knew better now. Beneath the glass and linen, Langford's Prime wasn't a restaurant. It was a front, and she was the only person left who could expose it. Alexa Pierce sat stiffly in the passenger seat of Detective Evan Price's sedan, watching the city slide past. It felt strange riding with the same man who'd warned her the night before, but now knowing he might be the only thing standing between her and the people who wanted her gone. The car smelled faintly of coffee and gun oil. Price drove without saying much, eyes flicking between mirrors every few seconds. Alexa caught herself doing the same. Finally, she broke the silence. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't think to look, Price said. I've got a contact downtown. Federal side. Alexa's pulse jumped. Federal, like FBI? He gave a short nod. You might have heard the name Agent Eric Lee. He's been working under deep cover for 2 years. I think he knows more about Langford than either of us. The city blurred by in streaks of sunlight and smog. They pulled into a parking garage under a nondescript office building, gray concrete and flickering lights. Price parked near the back. Stay here, he said. I'll bring him down. Alexa nodded, gripping her purse like a lifeline. But as soon as Price stepped out, she caught sight of something through the windshield, another car, black, parked 2 rows behind them. The same make and model as the SUV from the alley. Her gut twisted. When Price came back, he wasn't alone. A man in his late 30s walked beside him, Korean-American, trim suit, calm eyes that seemed to assess everything at once. Ms. Pierce, he said, I'm Eric Lee. Detective Price tells me you found something valuable. Alexa swallowed. If you mean the notebook, yeah. It's evidence. Against Langford, Lee nodded. Good. Then we don't have much time. He gestured toward a metal staircase. Upstairs. They climbed to a small office on the second floor, bare walls. 1 desk, 1 flickering light. Lee shut the door and turned the deadbolt. Now, he said, show me what you found. Alexa pulled the notebook from her bag, flipping to the page marked J. Park, transfer hold. Lee scanned it quickly, then stopped at the line beneath. Langford confirmed delivery. Watch staff for leaks. Delivery, Lee repeated. That's code for movement. Money or people? People? Alexa asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he closed the notebook slowly, his jaw tightening. I need to take this into evidence, Price frowned. Hold on, Eric. She's under witness protection now. You can't just Lee shot him a look. Protection doesn't matter if the case collapses. Alexa's pulse quickened. Wait, you said this was just an interview. It was, Lee said, voice even, until that notebook confirmed what I suspected. Langford isn't just laundering money. He's moving weapons through legitimate businesses. Alexa stared at him. Weapons? Through a restaurant? Lee gave a small, grim smile. Containers of kitchen supplies. Hidden compartments. Shipments come in labeled as wine or cookware. Price rubbed his temple. That explains the missing manifests we found last quarter. Exactly, Lee said. And Park was the one who refused to play along. That's why they tried to take him out. Alexa's stomach turned. So Langford's working with the same people who tried to kill Park? Yes, Lee said quietly. And now they're looking for you. He slipped the notebook into a sealed evidence bag. We'll keep this safe. Alexa nodded slowly, but something in her gut didn't sit right. Lee's tone was controlled, almost rehearsed. And Price looked uneasy, his shoulders stiff. She studied him. Detective? You okay? He hesitated. Yeah, just thinking. But his eyes wouldn't meet hers. Then his phone buzzed. He stepped aside to answer. Alexa caught a glimpse of the screen before he turned away, an incoming call labeled Langford Legal. Her heart froze. Lee's eyes flicked to her, catching her reaction. He mouthed silently, Don't move. Price finished the call and turned back, his expression unreadable. We need to move her, he said. Langford's lawyers already know she's talking. Too fast, Lee said quietly. You told them, didn't you? Price's jaw tightened. Careful what you're implying. Lee stepped closer. I'm not implying anything. You've been leaking case updates for months. Every time we move, they're one step ahead. Alexa stood frozen, watching two men with guns on their belts stare each other down. Gentlemen, she said softly. Maybe we should stay out of it, Price snapped. Lee's voice stayed calm. You just proved my point. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the elevator dinged down the hall. 3 sets of footsteps. Heavy. Lee moved first. They're here. He yanked Alexa toward the side door, motioning for silence. Price grabbed his weapon. The hallway outside erupted in echoing commands. LAPD, drop your weapon. But the voices weren't LAPD. Alexa could tell from the accents, the clipped military precision. Private security. Langford's men. Lee shoved open a maintenance door. This way! They sprinted down a concrete stairwell. Gunfire cracked overhead, one shot, then another. Alexa flinched, stumbling, but Lee caught her arm and pulled her along. Keep moving. They burst through the bottom door into the garage. The black SUV was gone, but Price's sedan was still running. Lee threw her the passenger door. Get in! What about Price? She shouted. Lee's eyes darkened. Price made his choice. They peeled out just as the stairwell door slammed open behind them. Bullets pinged against the rear fender, sparks flying. Alexa ducked. Who are these people? She cried. Langford's security, Lee said, swerving onto the street. They're not police. They're cleaners. If they catch you, they'll make it look like you never existed. Alexa gripped the door handle, trembling. I didn't ask for this. I'm just a waitress. Lee's knuckles tightened on the wheel. You're the only waitress who heard the truth. Traffic blurred around them as they sped through downtown. Alexa turned to him. What happens now? We get you somewhere safe, Lee said. Then we take Langford apart. Where's Park? Lee's gaze flicked to the mirror. Recovering. But if what you found in that notebook is accurate, he'll come for Langford himself. And when he does, the city's going to burn. Alexa's pulse pounded in her ears. And me? Lee's answer was quiet but sure. You stay alive long enough to testify. They crossed into a tunnel. For a few seconds, darkness swallowed the car. Then Alexa noticed something glowing faintly on the dashboard, a small red dot pulsing near the air vent. Her blood went cold. Agent Lee, she whispered, pointing. That light, what is that? Lee's eyes widened. Tracker. Before he could react, the tunnel filled with the roar of engines behind them. Black SUVs, 3 this time, closing fast. Alexa gripped the seat. They found us. Lee's jaw clenched. Hold on. The first SUV rammed them from behind. Tires screeched, metal screamed, and Alexa's head hit the window. The world tilted, twisted, then went black. When Alexa Pierce woke, she wasn't sure if it was morning or night. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering lamp that buzzed every few seconds. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and wood polish. Somewhere close, she heard the steady rhythm of a heart monitor and the soft hiss of oxygen. Her first thought was that she'd been taken. Her second, that she'd survived. Then a voice came from the corner. Calm, deep, familiar. You're safe for now. Alexa jerked upright, vision clearing just enough to make out a silhouette. June Park. He was sitting in a chair by the window, one arm still bandaged, a faint scar visible near his temple. He looked exhausted, but his gaze was sharp, deliberate. Alexa's voice cracked. Where am I? A warehouse outside Glendale, Park said. Used to belong to my company before the split. Now it's off the grid. Her head throbbed as memories flooded back the chase, the tunnel, the crash. Agent Lee, he was with me. Did he make it? Park's expression darkened. He did, but barely. He's being treated in another room. Alexa let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Those men, the SUVs, they knew exactly where we were. They were tracking Price's car, Park said. He sold you out. Alexa stared at him. You're sure? I've seen Langford's payment records. Price was on his payroll for months. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to argue, but deep down she knew it made sense. Price's hesitation, his phone call, the way the ambush happened so fast, it all fit. Park stood slowly, wincing as he adjusted his bandaged arm. You saved my life, Alexa, and in doing so you uncovered something that could collapse half the men in this city who call themselves legitimate. Alexa frowned. I didn't uncover anything. I just did what anyone would do. He smiled faintly. Anyone else would have ignored that whisper. Anyone else would be dead. He moved closer, lowering his voice. Tell me exactly what you heard again. Alexa hesitated. The man at your table, Min, right? He said, under the glass, that's all. Park nodded slowly. Min wasn't warning me. He was warning you, she blinked. What? The device wasn't meant to kill me, Park said. It was meant to kill everyone at that table, including the one person they didn't account for. Hugh, Alexa's heart skipped. You're saying I was part of the target? He nodded once. Langford's people planted the explosive under the table while it was still in the kitchen. The table was meant for a different dinner one Langford was supposed to attend. When I arrived unexpectedly, they kept the plan but didn't adjust the device. Min realized that at the last second. Her voice dropped. So the whisper was him trying to save me. Park looked at her steadily. He knew you weren't supposed to die there, but he did. The room fell silent, the truth settling like dust. Alexa swallowed hard. What do they want now? If Langford's behind all this, why keep coming after me? Because you have something they can't control, Park said. You're a witness they didn't plan for, and you've got their accounting trail. The notebook, he nodded. That book ties Langford's restaurants to a shell corporation used for weapons distribution. Once it goes public, he's finished. Alexa rubbed her forehead. Then let's give it to the police, Park's voice hardened. No, the police are compromised. Price wasn't the only one. Alexa stared at him. Then who can we trust? Park didn't answer right away. Instead, he opened a small drawer in the desk beside him and pulled out a sleek black phone. He tapped once, then handed it to her. A video file opened on the screen, grainy security footage showing a meeting in a lavish office. Gregory Langford sat at his desk, smiling that cold, practiced smile. Across from him sat two men Alexa didn't recognize, one bald, one wearing a navy suit. Langford's voice crackled through the audio. Park's death is just cleanup. The real shipment goes out next week. After that, we'll shut everything down. Permanently. The man in the suit asked, and the waitress? Langford smirked. Collateral. She won't last long. Alexa's stomach dropped. That's his voice. How did you? Agent Lee pulled it before the system purge, Park said. We found it on an encrypted drive he recovered from Price's laptop. Alexa looked up at him. Then you can expose him. Send it to the press. Park's gaze didn't waver. You think I haven't tried? Every journalist I contacted went silent within hours. Langford doesn't just own restaurants, he owns people. She sank back against the headboard. So what do we do now? We go public another way, Park said. Through someone who can't be bought. Alexa raised an eyebrow. Who's that supposed to be? Park's faint smile returned. You, she blinked. Me, I'm not a reporter. I'm not anyone. That's exactly why you're perfect, he said. You're real, ordinary, no agenda. The kind of voice people actually believe. Alexa shook her head. They'll destroy me. They'll try, Park said softly. But I'll make sure they fail. He handed her a flash drive. Everything's on there. The footage, the ledger, the payments proof of Langford's ties to organized crime. Upload it, post it, however you can. Alexa hesitated. And then what? Then you disappear, Park said simply. Before they can find you. The air between them hung heavy. She looked at him, this man who'd once terrified half the city, now trusting her with something that could burn it all down. What about you? She asked. You could walk away. You could hide. I don't hide, he said. Not anymore. There was something in his tone, tired, resolute. Like a man ready to stop running from his own shadow. Alexa closed her fingers around the flash drive. If I do this, if I tell the truth, what happens to you? Park's eyes darkened. Justice doesn't come free, but I'll pay for mine. Before she could respond, a sound broke the silence, a door creaking down the hall. Park straightened. Stay here. He moved toward the door, pulling a small pistol from his jacket. Alexa's heart hammered as the footsteps grew louder. Then a voice called out, muffled but familiar. Park! It's Lee! Park exhaled, lowering the gun slightly. He opened the door, letting Agent Eric Lee in. His arm was in a sling, his face pale but his eyes sharp. We've got a problem, Lee said. Langford knows you're alive. He's put a bounty on her. Alexa's blood ran cold. How much? Lee looked at her grimly. Enough to make a stranger pull the trigger for free. Park's voice dropped. Then it begins. Lee turned to Alexa. You ready to fight back? She didn't hesitate this time. I'm done running. Park nodded once, a shadow of a smile crossing his face. Good, because by tomorrow night Langford's empire ends, or all of us do. Rain fell hard over downtown Los Angeles that night, turning the streets into mirrors of neon and shadow. Alexa Pierce had never been more aware of every sound, every movement, every reflection in passing glass. Beside her, June Park walked with the calm of a man who'd accepted danger long ago. They looked like any other pair caught in the storm, just two people sharing an umbrella. But tucked inside Alexa's jacket was the flash drive that could bring down one of the city's most powerful men. Inside a nondescript brick building on Hill Street, a local news station ran its graveyard shift. The place was quiet, half-lit, the newsroom skeleton crew typing headlines and cutting B-roll for the morning broadcast. Park had chosen it for one reason: its lead anchor, Marisa Lowell, was one of the few journalists in the city known for refusing hush money. "She doesn't scare easy," Park said. "If anyone will air this without asking who benefits, it's her." Alexa exhaled, nodding. "And after that?" "After that," Park said quietly, "we stop hiding." They stepped through the security door, Lee flashing his temporary FBI credentials. The guard waved them through without question. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Marisa Lowell was waiting near the editing suite, tall, mid-40s, sharp eyes that looked like they'd seen every kind of lie. "Mr. Park," she said flatly, "you're supposed to be dead." "Not yet," Park replied. "And this woman beside me is the reason." Marisa's gaze flicked to Alexa, studying her. "You're the waitress from the explosion." Alexa nodded. "I have proof of who caused it and why." She handed Marisa the flash drive. "Everything's on there. Video files, payment records, ledgers, Langford's entire operation." Marisa plugged it into a workstation, scanning the files with practiced speed. Within seconds, the first video appeared, Langford's voice calm, deliberate, unmistakable. "Park's death is just cleanup. The real shipment goes out next week. After that, we'll shut everything down permanently." Marisa's eyes widened. "You realize what this means?" Park nodded. "It means his world ends tonight." She turned to Alexa. "If I air this, your face will be everywhere. You'll have no protection." Alexa hesitated, then straightened. "People need to know. I'm not hiding anymore." Marisa studied her for another moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. But if you're doing this, we do it right." She motioned to her producer. "Get this on the 11 o'clock segment. No teasers, no commentary, just facts." As the producer hurried off, Lee leaned toward Park. "We should move. Once this goes live, Langford will know where it came from." Park's gaze stayed fixed on the monitors. "Let him." But Alexa's instincts screamed. Something in the air felt wrong, too still, too quiet. She glanced at the front desk, where the security guard was no longer visible. The revolving door at the entrance turned once slowly, though no one seemed to be walking through. Then the lights flickered. Lee's voice went sharp. "They're here." Before anyone could react, the front glass shattered. Gunfire erupted, sharp, controlled bursts that echoed down the corridor. Staff ducked behind desks as armed men in black swept into the lobby. Alexa saw two of them, Langford's private security, faces hidden behind visors. Lee shoved her behind a pillar. "Stay down." Park pulled his gun from under his coat, moving with terrifying precision. The first guard went down before he even reached the stairwell. The second fired wildly, hitting a monitor and plunging half the newsroom into sparks and smoke. Alexa crawled toward the editing room. "The broadcast, don't let them stop it," she shouted. Marisa's voice cut through the chaos. "We're still rolling. Keep the feed alive." Park fired again, covering her path. "Get to the control room." Alexa sprinted, heart pounding. She burst through the door where the main control board hummed. The producer, Young, terrified, was trying to stabilize the feed. "It's uploading," he said. "But someone's trying to cut the connection." Alexa glanced at the screen. An external user had accessed the system remotely. The name blinking across the monitor made her blood run cold. "Langford Systems override pending." "They're killing the transmission," she said. "Then pull the plug," the producer said. "Physically." Alexa didn't hesitate. She yanked out the Ethernet line, grabbed a portable drive from the console, and slammed the data transfer button. The files began copying at lightning speed. Behind her, a gunshot cracked. The producer dropped to the floor, clutching his arm. Alexa screamed. "No!" A man stepped into the doorway, tall trench coat, pistol raised. It wasn't one of Langford's men. It was Cliff Morton. His smile was almost gentle. You really should have listened, Alexa. Some secrets aren't yours to tell. Alexa's voice trembled. You tried to kill me once. You think I'm going to let you do it again? You won't have a choice, Cliff said. Langford wants this wrapped up before midnight. She glanced at the transfer bar, 96%. So close, Cliff noticed. You're copying files, he said. Step away. Alexa forced herself to stand between him and the computer. You're not taking this, his eyes hardened. Don't make me a single gunshot cut through his words. Cliff froze, eyes wide, then crumpled to the floor. Park stood behind him, gun still smoking. He lowered it slowly. You were right, he said to Alexa. They don't stop until someone makes them. Alexa stared at the lifeless body, breath shaking. You killed him. He was already gone, Park said. Langford just hadn't buried him yet. The monitor beeped once the transfer complete. Alexa pulled the drive free and clutched it to her chest. Lee appeared in the doorway, limping but alive. We need to move. Police response is 3 minutes out and they won't know who's who when they arrive. Park nodded. Marissa? Safe, Lee said. She got the broadcast out on the backup feed. Alexa blinked. Wait, you mean it's live? Lee managed a tired smile. The whole city's seeing Langford's face right now. For the first time in what felt like days, Alexa really breathed. They made it out through the back loading bay, rain soaking through their clothes. Sirens wailed in the distance. Park stopped, glancing toward the skyline where digital billboards flickered with breaking news banners. Horizon Hospitality. CEO implicated in illegal shipments. Exclusive footage leaked Langford's empire was collapsing in real time. Alexa looked at Park. We did it. He gave a faint nod. No, he said softly. You did. Before she could answer, a black sedan screeched around the corner. Lee raised his weapon, but Park's hand shot out, stopping him. Wait, Park said. They're not his. The car door opened, and a woman stepped out mid-40s, soaked but composed. Marissa Lowell. She held up her phone. It's everywhere. Newswire, Channel 6, social media. You lit the fuse. Alexa felt tears burn behind her eyes. So it's over? Marissa's voice was quiet but steady. For Langford. Yes, for you? Not yet. Park turned toward Alexa. She's right. The world believes you now, but Langford still has people who'd rather erase the last witness. Alexa looked at him, rain streaking her face. Then I guess I don't get to disappear. Park studied her for a long moment, then nodded with a ghost of a smile. No, you get to live. Thunder rolled across the city as they walked away from the burning skyline. And for the first time in years, June Park, the man everyone thought was a ghost, smiled like someone ready to be seen again. By dawn, Los Angeles wasn't the same city. Screens blared Gregory Langford's downfall from every corner, news tickers, cafe TVs, even phones in strangers' hands. His face, once the picture of success and philanthropy, now looped over footage of him saying the words that damned him. Park's death is just cleanup. Alexa Pierce watched it unfold from a window in a safe house downtown. Below, the streets buzzed with the chaos of a scandal too big to contain. Protesters outside Langford's headquarters held signs that read, "Accountability now and justice for the covered up." The world finally knew. But Alexa didn't feel safe. Not yet. Behind her, June Park stood quietly, bandage gone, wearing a clean black coat. The rain had stopped, but the weight between them hadn't lifted. You should be proud, Park said softly. You gave them something real. Alexa turned to him. I gave them the truth. But I didn't give them justice. He's still out there. He's cornered, Park said. That's enough for now. No, Alexa replied, shaking her head. Cornered men are dangerous. They lash out before they fall. She wasn't wrong. Across the city, inside a penthouse suite Langford had once used to entertain investors, chaos reigned. Security feeds flashed with police raids. His assistant sobbed in the hallway. Langford himself stood before a massive window, phone pressed to his ear, listening as his lawyers told him the inevitable: there was no coming back. His bank accounts were frozen. The company board had voted him out. His name was trending for all the wrong reasons, but none of that mattered to him. Find her, he said into the phone. I don't care what it costs. Find the girl and end it. He hung up and stared out at the city he once controlled, a kingdom slipping through his fingers. Back at the safe house, Agent Eric Lee walked in with a grim expression. His arm was still in a sling, but he moved with purpose. "We just intercepted chatter from one of Langford's shell contractors," he said. "He's not running. He's fighting." Alexa frowned. "What does that mean?" Lee set down a folder. Inside were printed surveillance images, men moving crates into a warehouse near the port. The same place Langford had been using for his shipments. Park's eyes narrowed. "The shipment goes out tonight," Lee nodded. "And if we're right, it's not just paperwork or money laundering. He's clearing his tracks, literally. That warehouse holds physical evidence, manifest, weapon parts, forged contracts. He's planning to burn it." Alexa's voice was quiet but sharp. "Then we can't let him." Lee hesitated. "Alexa, this isn't your fight anymore. You've done your part. The video's out." "The world knows," she shook her head. "The world knows his words, not his crimes. If that warehouse burns, he gets to rewrite history. I won't let that happen." Park looked at her for a long moment, calm, calculating, but with something else beneath it. "Respect. Then we go together," he said. Lee sighed. "You two are insane." "Maybe," Park said. "But we finish what we start." Night fell over the Los Angeles docks. The sky burned orange with refinery smoke. Alexa, Park, and Lee crouched behind a row of cargo containers, watching as men in black uniforms moved inside the warehouse with fuel cans and torches. "There," Lee whispered. "That's the main door." Alexa's pulse thundered in her ears. "How many?" "Too many," Park murmured. "But chaos has always been my specialty." Before Lee could stop him, Park slipped away into the shadows. Moments later, an explosion of light and sound echoed from the far side of the lot, a truck bursting into flames. The guard shouted, splitting into confusion. "That's our cue," Lee said, pulling his gun. "Stay close." Alexa followed, ducking behind barrels, her breath coming in shallow bursts. They reached the warehouse door. Lee kicked it open. Inside, heat shimmered in the air. Crates stacked to the ceiling, each labeled with fake company names: Langford Trading Co., Blue Harbor Imports, Everline Logistics. Alexa moved closer, reading the side of one crate. "Kitchen supplies," she muttered. "Right." Lee pried it open with a crowbar and froze. Inside were weapon parts. Military grade. Serial numbers filed off. Alexa's stomach turned. He was smuggling arms through restaurants. Lee nodded grimly. And Park was the one who stopped moving them. That's why Langford tried to erase him. Before they could say more, a voice boomed across the room. "Touch anything else, and you won't walk out." Langford stood at the catwalk above, gun in hand, face twisted with fury. His once polished composure was gone. Sweat slicked his hair, his voice trembling with rage. Alexa's heart pounded. "You really think killing us fixes this?" Langford laughed. "Fixes it? You think this is about fixing? I built this city's luxury, its comfort, its illusions. And you," he pointed at her, "you're a waitress who thought she could change the world with a video clip." Park's voice came from the shadows. "You built nothing. You bought fear and sold silence." Langford's head snapped toward the sound. "Still alive, I see." Park stepped out, calm, unarmed. "You tried twice. Want a third?" Langford sneered. "I don't need to try again." He raised his gun. But Alexa moved first. She grabbed a metal bar from the floor and hurled it upward. It struck the railing with a sharp clang, distracting Langford just long enough for Lee to fire. The bullet grazed Langford's arm, sending his gun spinning across the floor. Langford stumbled, shouting, "You think this changes anything? They'll replace me tomorrow." Park climbed the stairs slowly, every step deliberate. "Then I'll find them too." Langford's eyes flicked toward a nearby detonator sitting on the control panel. His hand darted for it, but Alexa was faster. She ran, leaped onto the platform, and slammed his hand away. The detonator hit the ground, skidding across the metal floor. Langford's fury turned cold. He grabbed Alexa's arm, dragging her close. "You should have stayed quiet." Park fired once. Langford's grip loosened. He stumbled back, eyes wide, then crumpled. The room filled with silence except for the soft creak of metal and the faraway cry of sirens approaching. Alexa stared at Park, her breath shaking. "You killed him." Park looked down at Langford's body. "No," he said quietly. "He killed himself a long time ago." Lee moved to the crates. "We've got enough evidence here to shut down every partner he had. Let's get out before his men come back." Alexa nodded numbly. She glanced once more at Langford's fallen form. his eyes open but empty. For a man who'd built his empire on power, he'd died surrounded by ashes. Outside, rain began again, gentle this time, washing the soot from the air. Alexa stood beside Park, watching the police lights glow over the water. "So, it's over?" she asked softly. Park exhaled. "For him, yes. For us? Not yet." Lee joined them, holding up the sealed files. "When this hits the feds, half this city's going to flip. You both just rewrote the rules." Alexa gave a faint, tired smile. "Then let's make sure they stay rewritten." As the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, Alexa looked at Park one last time. "You said you don't hide anymore." He nodded slowly. "Neither do you." And as the city woke to a new day, one built on truth, not silence, Alexa Pierce realized something she'd never said aloud. She wasn't the waitress who overheard a whisper anymore. She was the voice that made the world listen. The city never really slept after that night. Not after the warehouse burned. Not after Langford's empire collapsed under the weight of its own lies. For days, Los Angeles pulsed like an open wound. Journalists digging through years of cover-ups, officers under internal review, politicians scrambling to distance themselves from the hospitality magnate turned arms trafficker. And through it all, one name kept surfacing on every screen. Every headline, every podcast recap: Alexa Pierce. The waitress who heard a whisper no one else did. She couldn't go outside without someone recognizing her now. Grocery store clerks, bus drivers, strangers at gas stations, all of them with the same look. Half awe, half gratitude. The woman who didn't look away. But fame wasn't freedom. For every person who thanked her, there were others who glared. People who'd made their money off Langford's quiet corruption. People who wanted her silence just as badly as he once did. So Alexa stayed low. She changed apartments, used cash when she could, avoided routines. The FBI gave her temporary protection, but she didn't trust badges anymore, not after learning how many of them had once answered to Langford's checkbook. Still, she refused to disappear. Every morning she'd wake, check the news, and watch as the world argued over what she'd done. Some called her a hero, others called her reckless. But Alexa didn't care about either. She cared that the truth had finally found daylight. 3 weeks after Langford's death, Alexa received a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Meet me at 11, Sunset Pier. Come alone." No signature, no location tag. But something in her chest already knew who it was. When she arrived, the pier was quiet. Early morning fog rolled off the Pacific, swallowing the skyline behind her. A few joggers passed by. A fisherman cast his line, and the world seemed almost ordinary again. Then she saw him. June Park stood at the far end, hands in his coat pockets, looking out over the gray horizon. The wind ruffled his hair. For a moment, Alexa thought about all the ways she could have met him: as a diner, a stranger, a story whispered by someone else. But instead, here they were, two people bound by an explosion, a secret and a promise. She walked up beside him. "You picked a strange place for a reunion." Park's mouth curved slightly. "I like quiet places. They tell the truth better than people do." Alexa folded her arms. "You disappeared." "I had to," he said. "Too many eyes. Too many debts to settle." "Settle?" He turned toward her. Langford wasn't the only name in that ledger. There are others, men who made deals in his shadow, who'll keep trying to rebuild what we tore down. I needed to clean the rest. Alexa studied him. "You mean you're still fighting?" "I'm finishing," he said softly. "And then I'm done." She hesitated. "And me? What happens to me when this is over?" Park's gaze softened. "You start over. You live a life that's yours." Alexa almost laughed. "A life that's mine? You think I can go back to waiting tables after all this?" "No," Park said. "I think you'll do something better. Something louder." He pulled something from his coat pocket, a thin envelope. "This belongs to you." Inside were official papers bearing the seal of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Alexa frowned. "What is this?" "An offer," Park said. "Testify in the federal hearings. Tell them everything you saw. Everything you heard. They want a face the public trusts, and that face is yours." Alexa stared at him. "You could testify. You know more than I do." He shook his head. "My name is already poison in those rooms. You'd lose before you began." She looked down at the papers, her throat tightening. "If I do this, they'll come for me again." Park's answer came quiet, unflinching. "Then let them. This time you'll have the world watching. They stood in silence, the waves crashing below. Finally, Alexa exhaled and tucked the envelope into her coat. All right, she said. I'll do it. Park gave a single nod. Then my job's done. He started to turn away, but Alexa caught his sleeve. You're just going to vanish again? He paused. You don't vanish when you've done what you were meant to do. You just fade into peace. Alexa's grip tightened. You don't get to talk like that. Not after what we went through. Park smiled faintly. You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone stubborn. Someone brave. The fog thickened, wrapping around them like smoke. Alexa blinked, and when she looked again, Park was already walking toward the end of the pier. June, she called. He didn't turn back. The truth doesn't need me anymore, he said over his shoulder. It has you. And then he was gone, swallowed by the fog, by the city, by the quiet he'd been chasing all along. 2 months later, the hearings began. The courthouse overflowed with cameras and reporters. Federal agents escorted witnesses through side doors. Alexa walked in through the front. Her hair was tied back, her expression calm, her shoulders squared. She wore no jewelry, no makeup, just the simple confidence of someone who'd already faced worse. When she took the stand, the room fell silent. The prosecutor asked her to describe the night of the explosion. Alexa spoke carefully, clearly. She told them about the whisper, about the glass, about the fear, about June Park bleeding on the floor while Cliff accused her of causing it, about Langford's lies and the notebook that proved them. Every word she spoke felt like lifting a weight off her chest, not just hers, but the city's. When the defense tried to discredit her, claiming she was manipulated by Park, Alexa didn't flinch. Manipulated? She said calmly. No, I was believed. Maybe for the first time in my life, the courtroom murmured. Cameras clicked. And the defense had nothing left to say. After the session, reporters crowded the steps outside. Alexa didn't stop for interviews. She only said one thing before stepping into the waiting car. I'm not a hero. I just listened when it mattered. By the end of summer, the verdict came in. Langford's associates, 6 executives, 2 politicians, and 1 high-ranking police official were convicted on charges of conspiracy, obstruction, and arms trafficking. Federal seizures shut down dozens of shell companies across 3 states. The city's skyline, once lit by Langford's empire of neon luxury, went dark one building at a time, and somewhere far from the spotlight, Alexa Pierce began rebuilding her life. She didn't go back to restaurants. Instead, she used the money from a small documentary grant one Marissa Lowell helped her apply for to start something new. A foundation that trained service workers to recognize and report corruption, trafficking, and workplace abuse. She called it Project Whisper, because, she told the first group of trainees, sometimes the quietest voice saves the loudest life. On a warm Friday afternoon, Alexa stood outside a community center, where the first Project Whisper branch had opened. Kids played on the sidewalk, parents chatted nearby. The world for once seemed at ease. Her phone buzzed an unknown number again. She hesitated before answering. Hello? A familiar voice chuckled softly. You sound calmer than I expected. Alexa's heart skipped. Park. Congratulations, he said. You won. No, she replied, smiling faintly. We did. There was a pause on the line. Then you ever miss it? What, the danger? The purpose, Park said. The clarity of knowing what's right and wrong. Alexa looked around at the laughter, the light, the city that was finally breathing again. No, she said. I found something better. And what's that? Peace. Park was silent for a moment. Then softly, good. You earned it. Before she could ask where he was, the line clicked dead. She didn't call back. She knew better by now. That night, Marissa Lowell aired the final segment of her 3-part special, The Whisper That Changed Los Angeles. The episode opened with aerial footage of the city at sunrise, streets drying after rain, traffic humming, light spilling over buildings that once hid shadows. Her voice came through, steady and solemn. Some stories begin with ambition, some end with justice, but a few, the rarest ones, begin with something smaller, a whisper that someone finally decided to hear. The segment showed Alexa's testimony, Park's recovered files, the fall of Langford's board members, and the rebirth of the city's accountability task force. And then, one final image, Alexa standing outside her foundation, greeting a new group of trainees. Marissa's narration ended quietly. Alexa Pierce reminded a city that silence is a choice, And in choosing to listen, she changed everything. The credits rolled. Later that evening, Alexa sat on her apartment balcony, watching the lights ripple across the skyline. For the first time in months, there were no police scanners, no alerts, no shadows at her door, just the hum of life returning to normal. She poured herself a cup of tea, the same brand she'd served 100 customers back at Langford's prime. Funny how something so ordinary could feel like victory now. From her balcony, she could see the faint outline of the pier in the distance where she'd last seen June Park vanish into the fog. She wondered if he was still alive somewhere, watching the city he'd helped save. Then again, maybe he didn't need to be found. Some stories end best when they fade into myth. Alexa leaned back, eyes on the stars. For months, she'd carried fear like armor, guilt like a shadow. But tonight, all she felt was stillness, peace. She thought of the whisper that started it all, 2 simple words that changed her fate. Under the glass. And for the first time, she understood them. It wasn't just a warning that night. It was a message about truth, how it hides beneath what's shiny, what's perfect, what's polished to impress the world. Truth doesn't live on the surface. It waits under the glass where only the brave ever look. She smiled faintly, whispering to the quiet city below, someone's always listening. 6 months later. The grand opening of the Whisper Center drew hundreds of journalists, reform advocates, restaurant workers, and even a few former FBI agents who had turned into whistleblower mentors. The mayor cut the ribbon, praising a woman who turned survival into service. Alexa stood at the podium, dressed simply, a hint of nervousness in her voice but fire in her eyes. Every system that fails us, she said, depends on silence. That's how corruption breathes in the quiet between what we see and what we say. But the truth doesn't die when someone buries it. It waits, and sometimes all it needs is one person willing to hear the whisper. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Marissa Lowell wiped a tear discreetly near the back. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Alexa stepped outside into the warm evening air. The sun dipped low, turning the glass of nearby buildings golden. And there, reflected in one of those windows, she thought she saw a familiar shape. A man in a dark coat, hands in his pockets, watching from across the street. When she blinked, he was gone. But a small white envelope lay on the hood of her car. Inside, a note written in clean, deliberate handwriting. The world finally listened. Keep talking. JP. Alexa smiled, folded the note carefully, and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Then she looked up at the city again, this time not with fear, but ownership. The skyline no longer felt like someone else's world. It was hers too. She turned, walked back inside the center, and joined the laughter echoing through its halls, a sound brighter, stronger, and louder than any whisper. For the first time since that night at Langford's prime, Alexa Pierce knew exactly who she was. Not a witness, not a victim, but the woman who proved that truth always finds its voice. And this time, the city would never stop listening.